You know, as Vicki and I were praying and studying, we thought about conversations that we've had with many people over the years. Long before the coronavirus pandemic, many voices were talking about shifts the church may need to initiate as we move through the third decade of the 21st century. COVID-19 and the upheaval that we've experienced because of it will eventually fade, but what it has shown us, what it has caused us to explore, just can't be allowed to fade. So I'd like to share just a few of those thoughts and questions. Today we see how restrictions such as groups meeting together and social distancing has required a change in how we do things. But what about tomorrow? What if tax-exempt status is revoked for churches? What if churches are pressed further to speak only what's deemed socially acceptable and politically correct from the pulpit? This is probably coming, but is the church ready? Will we be able to continue to be the church as it is, no matter what? Or are we dependent on government policies that are favorable to churches doing what we've been doing? Without a doubt, we are in a morphing world, a post-Christian culture with very different terrain than today's church has ever had to face. Even though the gospel is timeless, are we presenting that good news in a way that meets the challenges and answers the questions of our day? Are there methods that can hinder us or help us do this more effectively? We think so. It just might entail a reformation, a reforming, some shifts in our structures and methods. Now, I'm not known to be an alarmist. However, there is little doubt that the things that Daniel, Ezekiel, and John saw in the Spirit are happening right now. The COVID pandemic has made it clear that the church needs to be ready. But ready for what? For serving? Well, yeah. For giving hope? Absolutely. But is there more? Well, we think so. We believe the church must exist to be sent rather than simply existing to gather. This doesn't need to be an either-or proposition, but our forms must become secondary to the function of raising up disciple makers who can be separated or sent, just as it was in the book of Acts. The early church exploded and expanded throughout the known world with no media to speak of and no internet, obviously. They embraced the reality that they were being sent, and they lived as sent people. Every form they established had this at its core: apostolic impulse. Every believer was sent to be the church. Do our current church structures support being a movement of sent people? Is our structure, our skeleton, something that enables us to be upright, mobile, and living? Is there a need, and could we reframe how we see church to live as the sent ones of God? We think so. Rather than finding another new strategy or business model that we can superimpose over the bride of Christ, we believe we must get back to the model and manual that the original founder, Jesus, gave us. God's Word is our founding document. It's our vision statement, our charter, our policy manual. Isn't that what Jesus told us? Didn't He tell us to go and make disciples and that He would build His church? We think so. How about you? While books like How to Win Friends and Influence People and Good to Great aren't bad books and in fact have a lot of good things to say, have we given them undue weight in how we function? Do we believe that what Jesus and His early church did is our model for what we are to do and how we are to do it? Our first reaction is to say, yes, absolutely. But our bookcases often have more books about being a leader and how to lead than about being led and how to follow. Do we look like Jesus' vision of His church? Are we, like Jesus taught and the early church practiced, making disciples who then make disciples? Our concern is that we will try to ride this thing out until we get past the world according to COVID-19 and back to what we would call normal. But should we begin to rethink normal. As pastors and leaders, we feel led to ask God to reset our course for Jesus Church to be the apostolic sending movement that He intended. A movement that is discipling people who move toward God, one another, and into their world with the good news of Jesus. Do the Christ followers in our churches see themselves as the church, planting the church wherever they go? Could every Christ follower be a disciple maker? We think so. Then our skeleton, our structures, our processes must carry and propel that purpose to disciple sent people. Vicki and I would never presume to have all the answers, but God has led us on a journey of asking what can be difficult questions and recapturing His heart of discipleship, with an emphasis on the fivefold ministry functions that have been given to us. According to Ephesians 4, that's to bring maturity to the church. This world needs the church, and it needs the church to be the ready church, the discipled church, the sent church, living next door, walking with them, showing them a different way of life. Don't you think so? We see a movement of disciples making disciples. We see a movement of sent people in every sector of society. We see the release of the church, dispersed as sent ones, carrying the good news and with a mandate to share it. Do you see it? Are you ready? Do you have the structures in place to see that realized? Vicki and I have taken steps to live as missionaries, to see a movement of disciples who make disciples, sent ones, called Artisan. As lovers of the church, we're available to share with pastors, church planters, leadership teams, and fellow Christ followers who are asking some of these same questions or who want to discuss what this might look like in your context as we move forward. You can contact us by sending an email to info@artisansculture.com. Again, that's info@artisansculture.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram @Artisans Culture. Be blessed.